Buckle up, buttercups. It's about to get dangerously informative. Look, we all love a good vacation. Sunsets over the Serengeti, a gondola ride through Venice. Maybe finally understanding what the heck Stonehenge is all about. But sometimes the pursuit of adventure can lead us down some, shall we say, ill-advised paths. And by ill-advised I mean might get you kidnapped and held hostage in a yurt while someone tries to trade you for a goat kind of paths. Traveling can be an exciting adventure, but safety should always be a top priority. So before you dust off that passport and start practicing your help, I'm being held against my will in a foreign country charades. Maybe take a gander at this list. We're about to delve into the top 10 most dangerous countries Americans should avoid in 2024 and 2025. Think of it as a public service announcement brought to you by anxiety and the sobering realization that the world can be a terrifying place. Now let's unpack this suitcase of despair, shall we? Afghanistan, land of breathtaking mountains, rich history, and, oh right, decades of ongoing conflict. It's like trying to enjoy a picnic in the middle of a minefield. Not exactly the relaxing getaway you'd hoped for. The Taliban's back in charge, and let's just say their idea of a tourist attraction doesn't involve complimentary cocktails or those little towel swans. We're talking about a high risk of terrorism, folks. Not the someone stole my beach towel kind of terrorism, but the might spontaneously combust from a car bomb kind. The US State Department has issued its highest travel advisory level for Afghanistan: do not travel. And when the US government, an entity that once considered invading Canada, tells you not to go somewhere, you should probably listen. This isn't the time for a daring adventure to Kabul, unless of course your idea of a daring adventure involves dodging drone strikes and trying to blend in with a crowd of heavily armed insurgents. In which case, may I suggest a less life-threatening hobby, like competitive thumb-twiddling or extreme ironing. Next up on our whirlwind tour of places you really shouldn't visit, Syria. Once home to vibrant cities and ancient wonders, Syria is now synonymous with civil war and unimaginable destruction. Imagine a game of Jenga, but instead of wooden blocks, it's a country, and instead of carefully removing pieces, everyone's just chucking grenades at it. That's Syria in a nutshell. The country is riddled with armed groups, each with their own agenda and arsenal. And let's not forget the ever-present threat of ISIS, who, despite recent setbacks, are still very much interested in turning your vacation into a hostage situation. So unless you're a war correspondent with a death wish and a really good life insurance policy, it's best to admire Syria's beauty from afar, like really far, like from the comfort of your own couch while binging Netflix and questioning your life choices. Welcome to Yemen, a country locked in a brutal civil war that's about as much fun as a root canal performed by a rabid badger. For the past 8 years, Yemen has been ravaged by violence, famine, and disease. It's like the entire country is participating in a real-life Hunger Games, only without the cool costumes or Jennifer Lawrence. Saudi-led airstrikes have turned entire cities into rubble, while Houthi rebels backed by Iran control large swaths of the country. And if the constant threat of getting blown up or shot at isn't enough to deter you, there's also the risk of cholera, diphtheria, and starvation. Seriously, the humanitarian crisis in Yemen is so dire, even Doctors Without Borders is like, yeah, we're gonna sit this one out. So, unless you're a seasoned war journalist with a Kevlar vest and a stomach of steel, maybe give Yemen a miss. Chapter 4, Somalia, where pirates are the least of your worries. Ahoy mateys, welcome to Somalia, a land where the beaches are lovely, the ocean is vast, and the chances of getting kidnapped for ransom are higher than a giraffe's blood pressure. Sure, Somali pirates have calmed down a bit since their heyday of hijacking cargo ships and holding captains hostage for Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean the coast is clear, so to speak. Somalia is still grappling with a volatile security situation, fueled by al-Shabaab militants who make the Taliban look like a bunch of peace-loving hippies. We're talking bombings, assassinations, and attacks on hotels frequented by foreigners. So, unless you're really into playing real-life Escape from Mogadishu, and let's be honest, that movie was stressful enough to watch, maybe skip the Somali adventure this year. Chapter 5, South Sudan, where even the UN is like, nope. South Sudan, the world's youngest nation and a shining example of how quickly things can go from bad to holy crap, everything's on fire. Since gaining independence in 2011, South Sudan has been locked in a brutal civil war that's claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people and displaced millions more. It's like the entire country is stuck in a never-ending mosh pit of violence, famine, and disease. And if that's not enough to deter you, there's also the risk of getting caught in the crossfire between government forces and various rebel groups, all vying for control of the country's oil wealth. Even the United Nations, an organization that's no stranger to conflict zones, has struggled to maintain peace in South Sudan. Their peacekeeping mission has been plagued by accusations of sexual assault, corruption, and a general inability to, actually keep the peace. So, unless you're a masochist with a death wish and a UN helmet for protection, maybe give South Sudan a miss. Chapter 6, Iraq, where history comes with a side of explosions. Iraq, the cradle of civilization, the land of Mesopotamia, the Well, you get the picture. It's a country with a rich history, stunning archaeological sites, and a knack for attracting more than its fair share of conflict. After decades of war, sanctions, and the US-led invasion in 2003, Iraq is slowly trying to rebuild. But let's be real, it's a bit like trying to rebuild a sandcastle after a tsunami. While the defeat of ISIS was a major victory, the group's remnants are still active, carrying out sporadic attacks and reminding everyone that they haven't gone away, they're just taking a breather before the sequel. Add to that the ever-present threat of sectarian violence, political instability, and a government that's about as effective as a chocolate teapot, and you've got yourself a recipe for disaster. So unless you're a war correspondent with a flak jacket and a PhD in Middle Eastern politics, maybe stick to visiting Iraq through the magic of documentaries. Chapter 7, Central African Republic, where diamonds are not your friend. Welcome to the Central African Republic, a country so dangerous, it makes the Hunger Games look like a friendly game of badminton. This landlocked nation in the heart of Africa is a textbook example of how not to run a country. Imagine a place where armed groups roam free, terrorizing civilians and battling for control of resources like diamonds, gold, and... well, that's about it. It's like the Wild West but with more machetes and fewer saloons. The government, what little there is of it, has about as much control over the country as a hamster on a wheel. And the UN peacekeeping mission, bless their hearts, is spread so thin, they're basically using toothpicks to hold the country together. So, unless you're a thrill seeker with a death wish and a hankering for conflict diamonds, maybe give the Central African Republic a wide berth. Chapter 8, Libya, where even the camels are armed. Ah, Libya, the land of ancient ruins, scorching deserts, and, oh right, a chaotic civil war that's been raging since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Imagine a country split between two rival governments, each backed by a hodgepodge of militias with more firepower than common sense. It's like a real-life game of Risk, but instead of plastic armies they're using actual tanks and rocket launchers. And if that wasn't enough, ISIS decided to set up shop in Libya because why not? It's not like they had anything better to do, so now you've got jihadists running around, blowing things up and generally making life miserable for everyone. The US State Department has issued a Level 4 travel advisory for Libya do not travel. And frankly, when the US government, an entity that once considered invading Canada for its maple syrup reserves, tells you not to go somewhere, you should probably listen. Chapter 9. Venezuela, where even the inflation is inflated. Welcome to Venezuela, a country where the beaches are beautiful, the people are friendly, and the economy is about as stable as a house of cards built on a roller coaster. Once one of the wealthiest countries in South America, Venezuela is now in the throes of a humanitarian crisis that's making even the most hardened economists weep into their calculators. Hyperinflation has turned the Venezuelan bolivar into something you'd use to wipe your, well, let's just say it's not worth the paper it's printed on. Food and medicine are scarce, crime is rampant, and the government is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. Protests erupt regularly, often met with brutal crackdowns by security forces, and if you thought getting your hands on toilet paper was tough, try finding a role in Venezuela. It's like searching for a unicorn riding a golden retriever through a hurricane. So unless you're really into black market currency exchanges, standing in line for hours for a loaf of bread, and the thrill of potentially getting caught in a riot, maybe skip the Venezuelan adventure this year. Chapter 10, Mali, where even the music can be deadly. Ah, Mali, the land of ancient empires, vibrant music, and, oh right, a whole lot of kidnappings and terrorist attacks. This West African nation has been grappling with instability and violence for years, thanks to a toxic cocktail of ethnic tensions, poverty, and weak governance. It's like someone threw a Molotov cocktail into a tinderbox full of grievances, and then decided to film the whole thing for a very depressing documentary. Armed groups, some linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, roam the north and central regions, carrying out attacks, kidnapping foreigners for ransom, and generally making life miserable for everyone. It's gotten so bad that even Timbuktu, once a byword for exotic adventure, is now considered a no-go zone. The Malian government, bless their hearts, is trying to restore order, but they're a bit like a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. They mean well, but they're outmatched. So, unless you're a seasoned security contractor with a penchant for danger and a really good life insurance policy, maybe give Mali a miss this year. Your loved ones will thank you. Outro. So, where can I go without fearing for my life? Well, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of 10 places where your chances of having a relaxing vacation are about as high as finding a unicorn riding a Segway through a car wash. While these countries may have rich cultures and histories, the current safety risks make them dangerous for American travelers. But hey, don't despair. There are still plenty of amazing and safe destinations out there waiting to be explored. Just remember to do your research, check those travel advisories, and maybe pack a good book instead of a bulletproof vest. Stay safe, travel smart, and always remember, adventure doesn't have to equal imminent peril. Unless you're into that sort of thing, in which case maybe seek professional help.